Ruby Bridges was a civil rights activist starting at a young age. Ruby was born September of 1954 in Tylertown, Mississippi. When she was just 4 years old, her family moved to New Orleans, Louisiana. 1954 is the same year that the Supreme Court's Brown v. Board of Education declared separate public schools for black and white children was unconstitutional. But in many places, that triumph did not translate into change. For years after Brown, much of the South simply refused to integrate. When Ruby was in kindergarten, she was one of many African American students in New Orleans who were chosen to take a test determining whether or not she could attend a white school. It is said that the test was written to be especially difficult so that the students would have a hard time passing it. In 1960, Ruby Bridges' parents were informed by officials from the NAACP that she was one of only 6 African American students to pass the test. 3 girls, including Ruby, were selected to attend the William Frantz Elementary School, but by the first day, the 2 other girls had dropped out. Ruby would be the only African American student to attend William Frantz Elementary and be the first black child to attend an all-white elementary school in the South. On the morning of her first day at the new school, Ruby and her mom were escorted by 4 U.S. Marshals. The sight of this small black girl being escorted to school by 4 large white men inspired Norman Rockwell to create the painting, The Problem We All Must Live With, which appeared on the cover of Look magazine in 1964.
The mothers of downtown New Orleans screaming at a Negro child as she entered the William Frantz Elementary School, first in the city to be integrated.
The chaos continued onto her second day of class when parents pulled their kids out of the school and teachers refused to teach Ruby.
The day that I entered school on my first day, all of the white parents rushed in and pulled out their kids. 500 kids left school that day because I was there. And they didn't come back. So I spent the whole year searching for those kids. The few kids that remained, the principal would hide them so that they would never see me and I would never see them.
Barbara Henry from Boston, Massachusetts, was the only teacher who agreed to teach her. For a full year, Miss Henry taught Ruby in a classroom all alone. She spent the entire day, every day, in Miss Henry's classroom.
What I do remember about first grade in that year is that it was very lonely. I didn't have any friends and I wasn't allowed to go to the cafeteria or play on the playground. So what bothered me the most was the loneliness in school every day.
Over the years, families began to send their children back to the school and the protests and civil disturbances gradually seemed to subside. Ruby Bridges finished grade school and graduated from the integrated Francis T. Nichols High School in New Orleans. She then studied travel and tourism and worked as a world travel agent. In 1984, Ruby got married and later became a full-time parent to their 4 sons. Ruby wrote about her early life experiences in 2 books, Ruby Bridges Goes to School and Through My Eyes. Soon after the publications, Ruby was reunited with her teacher, Barbara Henry, and did several speaking engagements together. In 1999, Bridges formed the Ruby Bridges Foundation, headquartered in New Orleans. Through education and inspiration, the foundation seeks to end racism and prejudice.
My commitment to service began with a program called Ruby's Bridges. That was established to foster racial healing by providing cultural connections between students from diverse backgrounds.
In 2007, the Children's Museum of Indianapolis unveiled a new exhibit documenting Bridges' life. Now at age 63, Ruby Bridges is a lifelong activist for equality. She continues to speak to children in schools all across the country, telling her story and encouraging them to learn about each other and to love what makes each of us special and important.
I think it's fair to say that if it hadn't been for you guys, I might not be here and we wouldn't be looking at this together. So
I was an innocent child that knew absolutely nothing about what was happening that day. But that I learned a very valuable lesson. And that is that we should never look at a person and judge them by the color of their skin. That's the lesson that I learned in first grade.